In addition to doing backward chaining or top-down search, we can do bottom-up or forward chaining search. Here we might begin with a set of axioms, and this, again, unless it's coupled with a heuristic, can be very expensive. The whole point of backward search is beginning with the goal gives you some guidance as to what rules you should be exploring and looking for a solution. That's the reason I gave you a regression or backward planner, was that the goals that people were trying to satisfy in their major gave some guidance. You could still use a forward chaining search to look for a particular goal or theorem to prove. Just like we did here, we were basically asking, is lit L2 a theorem? Does it follow from the axioms in the knowledge base? We could do the same thing here, but because we don't have any sense of the goal, what our endpoint is, we would almost certainly want to do this with a heuristic that ideally was pretty good, that took into account the goal. That would be the way, using a heuristic in this case, in the case of forward search, would be the only way really of directing the search towards a goal that we wanted to satisfy. So in forward search, we start with the axioms. We start with the atomic axioms, and in the text, this is a limited environment. They're just talking about definite clauses, in propositional definite clauses. These have a very fixed form. They have this kind of form, and when they talk about forward search, they talk about collecting a consequence set, and the consequence set typically, in this case, in the case of the text, is just a set of atomic propositions that that are true. Okay, and you saw from a previous example. Let's see, where is it? We saw from a previous example that atomic propositions are not always the only kind of proposition that we want to form or prove. And so forward search in particular, as described in the text, is limited relative to what we may want to do more generally, and that's why we're going to go a bit beyond the text today. So forward search, you're looking for rules whose antecedents are satisfied by what you know so far. What you know initially are just the axioms. And so here we know that we might look through these axioms and find that an antecedent of one of them includes live outside. And that live outside would allow us to conclude live W5. Live W5, which now is added to the consequence set, it is what we know at a point in time in the forward search, can be coupled with OKCB2, and using Rule 11, this allows us to conclude live W6. Live W6 using Rule 10 allows us to conclude live P2. Live P2, together with a couple of other axioms using Rule 14, allows us to conclude lit L2. Again, you know, this is not something you would typically couple with directed theorem proving, where you're trying to demonstrate the truth of one theorem. There is an exercise in the book, possibly I'll give it to you for Friday, or Saturday, that asks you to think more deeply about how you would use forward search for that kind of theorem proving, where you've got one hypothesis in mind that you want to demonstrate. Forward chaining can be good for consistency checking of the knowledge base, though. all of these proof procedures assume implicitly that the knowledge base is consistent. What does it mean for the knowledge base to be consistent? It means that there is no way to demonstrate a contradiction. There is no way to demonstrate both P and not P in the knowledge base. And that's an important assumption. If you can demonstrate a contradiction, then all bets are off, and you want to make sure that your knowledge base is consistent with to begin with. So you might actually do a forward search looking for cycles, but not just cycles of identical propositions, but a more abstract cycle that looks for both a proposition and its contradiction. Okay, so it can be good for that. Checking the knowledge base. This just continues the example of the forward search, looking at still other operations or other ways of applying the rules to the set. You can follow this later. But again, this is, all of this involves modus ponens. The book